Hey guys, welcome back. In this video, we are going to look at our first contemporary integrative theory, in addition to James Coleman's rational reconstruction. This is an integrated exchange theory. It looks complicated. It's not easy. It's not as easy as some of the things we've seen, but I will try to explain it in a way that's pretty simplified. All right, so basically, the guy who comes up with this is a guy named Richard Emerson, and he's building on Boan-Lenzo's work on exchange theory, social exchange, which involves exchanging rewards back and forth. And rewards, remember, we're not talking about economics, so what we're talking about are things like smiles, positive words. We're talking about fun, that type of stuff. So Emerson, what his goal is to turn social structure over here into the dependent variable. He said, I'm buying what Boan-Lenzo is selling about exchange. Two people over here, A and B, and they are exchanging rewards. And the relationship is strong if there is distributive justice. Both people feel like what they're putting in, they're getting out proportional rewards for. What Emerson's big idea here is to say, the way to get up to social structure is to think about networks of relationships. So A is connected to B, but A, B, and C could also be connected together. So how do we do that? And so here's what I have for, this is his bridging idea. His big concept is exchange networks. And I'll explain them to you. Basically, exchange networks involve, I think, four kind of premises. Premise one is a number of actors. Okay, so here we've got a small possible network. It's 3 people, but you can imagine, I'll talk about expanding that out. Premise 2 is there have to be a variety of valued resources. So you can think about, in a friendship group, you can think about there is having fun together, there is being supportive of each other, there is the smiles that people give to each other, and you can think about, I mean, that's not a fantastic list, but you can think about, you have multiple aspects of your friendship, and that all of them have potential rewards attached to them and resources. Third is opportunities to exchange, so the people have to be able to be in communication with each other. Fourth, and this is the crucial one, all those other things almost seem definitional. Fourth is the really important one, and I've written it up here. The exchanges that occur have to be contingent on each other. So what does that mean? What it means is, in order for A and C to exchange, there has to be A and B exchanging first. A and C do not get to exchange unless A and B exchange first. That is what will make it into a network. And that's a subtle idea. Let me demonstrate what it would mean. So let's say A and B are hanging out and they're having a good time and they want to get C involved. So B is willing to drive A over to C's house. Okay, and now A and C can interact with each other, and boom, you've got a social exchange network. This relationship was dependent on B driving A over. So A had to exchange something with B. Maybe A said, hey, you know what, I'll buy you dinner if you're willing to be the person who drives tonight. Something like that. So an exchange happens, and then we end up with A being over at C's house, and now they're able to interact, and stupid names, but that's the point. Now, multiply this, times however many friends you have, and what you see is relationships that are dependent on each other at any particular time. That's the idea of an exchange network, and that's really the idea of contingency. It's not a social exchange network if A and B can interact and A and C can interact, but there's no dependency. If A and B interact, and then A and C interact. That's just you're friends with this person and you're friends with that person, and they aren't necessarily connected to each other. The point there is that that's fine. That happens all the time, but you can't build a big macro level idea of what society looks like from just I interact with that person and then I interact with that person. It has to be I interact with that person and then that person gets me there and now I'm interacting with them, and we can build a society out of that. And remember, that's Emerson's ultimate goal, is to build an integrated exchange theory. Let's see what else we got to cover here. The other concept here is what he calls power dependence, and these words have relatively intuitive definitions. Power, I shouldn't say that. They're the concepts that you know. They're worded kind of in a funny way. Power, to Emerson, is the potential cost one person can make another person accept. So if you think about this, B's the driver. B has power over A because B can make A accept, like, I tell you what, you pay for the gas and then I'll drive. Like, that's kind of a jerk thing to do, but you understand what I'm talking about here. Even if he doesn't or she doesn't use that power, the fact that he or she has that power is significant in the relationship. That's what power means. It's the potential cost you can make another person accept. Dependence is the opposite of that. It is the cost a person is willing to accept in order to take part in that relationship. So power dependence are sort of two sides of the same coin. Here's the thing. So I use the example of driving somebody to another friend's house. Emerson is quick to stress that while this is an oversimplified view of human nature, we don't have to oversimplify it. Rewards in a relationship are multiple. It's not the only thing that exists in A and B's relationship is paying for dinner or gas and getting a ride. There's also, supporting each other when something goes badly in one of your lives. There's also making each other laugh. There's also, just being affectionate, and like all of those little things are all multiple rewards. So it's important to understand that it could be that B has power over A with regard to that one issue, but A may have power over B in other ways as well. Maybe A's funnier than B is, and B is willing to, pay to be dependent on A because A makes B laugh so much. So that idea of multiple rewards means that power dependence doesn't have to be unidirectional. It's not B is more powerful than A. It's B's more powerful than A when it comes to transportation, but maybe A's more powerful than B when it comes to helping with homework or whatever. In balanced relationships, power ends up being relatively equal, but power still exists in that situation. And that is going to be an important point for the conclusion of this video. Let's see, where the determination of power. Oh, yeah. And so we can think about this A-B-A-C thing, and there being lots of different ways that power works. But as we build up to a network, we can think about certain individuals being in positions of power relative to the other ones, and that they can influence the way the entire network kind of functions. You can think about this with regard to peer groups in high school, and how, if one person, the person who was sort of the most popular, or in this case the most powerful, was able to determine kind of how mean the group would be, or when the group would be mean, if there were kind of habitual times when that would happen. That's what we're thinking about here. Which leads us to our conclusion about this. And where I would like to suggest there's a possibility for some coolness. This theory to me is it's interesting because, you know, I bought Homans' thing and I was willing to go with him on the it's a useful way of thinking about things. This theory leaves me cold, and I don't know if it's because I'm actually drawing it out or if it's like thinking it's like that there is no necessary culture that exists within this. I think that may have something to do with it. It's not that I dislike it exactly. It's that I don't know. It lacked something to me. That said, you know, if we fill in details with a lot of different rewards, it's possible this becomes a very persuasive theory. But what I would suggest is I think it's really useful in a non-sociology, in an in-your-life kind of way for this reason. Power in a network, including your family, including your group of friends, is dependent on the ability to reward or punish people. Now, lots of research has been done about the relative effectiveness of rewards versus punishment, and it has basically uniformly come to the conclusion that rewards work better than punishment does in terms of inducing people to do things. So here's the thing. If you're for example, you get more power in that network, the more you are willing to find ways of rewarding people. That doesn't mean just, you know, constantly complimenting people, because one of the elements of exchange theory is the more a person is rewarded in a certain way, it's possible they can become satiated and that reward is less valuable to them. But in a general way, having the power to reward people, which you can think about as just being a kind person, it has the ability to strengthen the relationships, strengthen the network, and it allows you to become a person who kind of is in a position of power in the network, which means able to determine the character of the network a little bit. It feels creepy to describe it this way. It's way easier for me to describe it not in exchange terms and say, you know, if you decide that you want to make the world a better place, be kind to the people around you, and you can develop sort of a charismatic authority, to use, you know, terms that we've used way back when with Weber. But that's, you know, and that's fine, that's true, but it's Emerson that is kind of getting me to think along these lines. And I think it's a little cynical because it's a little bit strategic thinking in relationships. But as I talked about with regard to James Coleman, there's something to be said for not worrying about that if things are going to work. So something to think about. All right, that's it for Emerson and integrated exchange theory. In the next video, we're going to deal with a theory that's going to be grounded a little bit more in a more nuanced human nature, a more familiar looking human nature. And that's going to be structuration theory with Anthony Giddens. So I'll see you in that video.